Okay, there we go. Now we are recording and I will share my screen. Okay, can I get a thumbs up if you can see slides? Excellent, thank you. Audience participation at its best. So today's talk is Camp Albocondo Then and Now. I always think it's interesting to hear why people start researching the things that they do. So in my last career, I was the command historian for Fort Monmouth prior to that base's closure. So a lot of my work is military history. But now and then, these other projects pop up, and this is one of them, right? That's not military history related. So how did I come to be researching Camp Albocondo? I actually live right down the street and had driven past the entrance so many times, never knowing really what was back there, and assuming that one couldn't go back there. And world's largest rule follower that I am, I was not going to go trespassing back there, right? And then I heard, no, it's an abandoned campground and you can go back there, it's open space. And I said, okay, now I was intrigued. So I actually went back there with, see if I can get my slides to advance as they are supposed to. Let's see. Oops, there we go. I went back there with my family just to explore. It was a socially distant thing that you could do. So we went back there to explore this abandoned campground. Then it had really grabbed our interest. We come home and what's the first thing you start doing? You start Googling, right? What is this place? So we started Googling and we just could not find much. And as a good historian, I couldn't let that go. And so researching the history of this place that I only later found out was called Camp Albocondo took much of the summer. It became a research project that my son, JP, my 12-year-old son, JP, and I took over. JP, are you there? He was going to wave hello to everybody, but it became this wonderful family project. And in the course of our research, we dug through land records and tax records and maps and blueprints. We met members of the Clayton and Sitta families who were instrumental to our research. One reason I wanted to pursue the story was because when on social media, I started asking initial inquiries, like, does anybody know what's up with this place? So many people had so many amazing memories of this site. You could feel the joy coming through the computer screen when people from the 60s, 70s, 80s, generations of people, not just from Ocean County, but from different states from across the country were weighing in on social media and saying how much this place had meant to them. And I said, well, we can't let this stand then. There has to be some commemoration of this site so that all of the wonderful history there won't be lost. So with that little background, I will finally get to the point. We professors, we talk a lot. We have a lot of time to fill up. So our talk today will take probably 40 to 45 minutes, which is what we would normally do if we were in person. And then we'll have time for some Q&A. So, all right, here we go. Finally getting to the meat of the product. The large tract of land near the intersection of Route 571 and Whitesville Road in Toms River Township, New Jersey, has an undeniably fascinating and little-known history. And you can see it on the map here. Numerous Native American artifacts recovered at the site show the Lenape once frequented the area. Family legend has it that a grist mill operated there for a period. Got a picture of the site where the family believes the grist mill was, and these are some artifacts from the grist mill days pulled out of the lands. This is something I certainly want to explore in greater detail. My research has been a bit hampered by the closure of so many archives, but I think it would be a wonderful place to explore a little more deeply and see if we can pinpoint the exact location of the grist mill. Our focus here in this article, though, is going to be how, as a private home and campground in the 20th and 21st centuries, the site was a source of joy for generations of children and adults alike. Located along the Toms River and adjacent to the notorious 1,300-acre Ciba-Geigy Chemical Corporation Superfund site, the Camp Albocondo story is more than just a piece of local history. It's a story that can teach us much about recreational patterns, community service, philanthropy, environmentalism, and the many different lives that a piece of land can lead. There you can see the proximity to that famous Ciba-Geigy site. Okay, so Charles Raymond Clayton built a one-room waterside log cabin at the site in the mid-1930s, though according to multiple family members, he did not actually own the land at the time. He could get away with that then. Ray, as he was called, styled the cabin Calitra for sons Hugh, Connolly, and Lloyd, wife Ethel May Willoughby Clayton, and himself, Ray. So here you can see Ray and Ethel. Many of the photos I am showing you today were generously loaned to me by, again, Mrs. Bonnie Clayton Sitta. So on the side here, you see Ray and Ethel, and then you see the original cabin under construction there. Here you can see later pictures of the cabin. The site became a really popular gathering place, with local newspapers printing breezy notices like 75 persons attended the annual gun club picnic Sunday at Raymond Clayton's cabin along the creek. A scenic lunch, shooting matches, and swimming were featured. My son found it interesting that they would put little notices like this in the newspaper, and I was explaining to him, you know, middle schooler, that this was common, right? That this was the way people shared information in a community, much like we use social media today. So public records show that in 1947, Ray's son, the aforementioned Hugh Connolly Clayton, and Hugh's wife, Alta Jean, purchased the land at auction. A local landowner, Phil Maimone, he was also bidding on the land, but according to family lore, the crowd at the auction loudly encouraged him to let the young Hugh, who everyone would have known was just back from military service, win the land. So, you know, Hugh wins them over and he gets the land. In 1950, Hugh Connolly and Alta Jean built a home on the site for their family, placed just back from Ray's original cabin on the river. The family would call the home Camp Albocondo, incorporating the names Alta Jean, daughter Bonnie, Hugh Connolly, and son Douglas. So Albocondo. Here you can see an early photo of the ranch. Note the two-car garage. We'll be looking at that more later. Here's another picture of the ranch. Beautiful lake in front. And here's a picture of Hugh and Jean inside by that beautiful fireplace. According to a 1960s Asbury Park Press feature article on the Albocondo Ranch, as it's called in the article, sandstone rocks from the creek were used in the construction of the house and its fireplace, and additions were made to the house over the years. At the time that article was written, the author noted that the home, with its dark red siding and knotty pine walls, had a living room, family room, dining room, office, small den, utility room, kitchen, 3 bedrooms, and 2 baths. The stages of construction created a multi-layer home. It's an interesting floor plan. And the kitchen actually rises several steps above other rooms and is half open on one side, giving the effect of a balcony. The property also boasted 2 ponds formed by dredging cranberry bogs, as you can see here from this magnificent early aerial photo. When I was talking to Mrs. Clayton Sitta, she proudly noted that her father built everything in that home himself. The site's use as a campground formally dates to about 1965, but the whole time Hugh owned the property, he had thrown it open to large groups of family and friends, civic organizations like the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts. It really was a local gathering place. By 1971, Camp Albocondo boasted 200 campsites, 2 lakes, and facilities with indoor toilets and showers. Here is a rare photo of Hugh at work actually building one of the bathroom facilities. A 1975 article notes that the camp had 300 campsites, all sold out over the 4th of July weekend. This was a really good time to be in the camping business. As Martin Hogue notes in the article, A Short History of the Campsite in the journal Places, by mid-century, camping had become the biggest of businesses. And this is the period where we see Campgrounds of America, or KOA, for those of you who are well-known campers. They talk about how in this period, KOA goes from a single campground in 1961 to 829 by 1979. So it was a good time to be in the camping business. Now, Hugh Connolly's son, Douglas Clayton, who grew up at the site with his family, purchased it from his parents in 1980 after he returned home from a stint in the military. Hugh and his wife retired to first one, and you can see it here, houseboat, and then a second 2-story houseboat on the property. Doug recalled in an interview I did with him for this piece that in its day, Camp Albocondo was a model campground, and that he at one point served as the president of the New Jersey Camp Owners Association. A 1990 advertisement for the campground boasts 200 campsites, hookups available, store, game room, pool, fishing, recreation field, playground, paddleboat, canoe, and tube rentals. So it really was its own bustling city of activity there. Here you can see the campground in its heyday, packed with campers. Got people enjoying their canoeing there on the lake. Another canoeing shot there. By 2005, though, Doug was ready to leave. When interviewed, he did not elaborate much on his motivations, and I very much wanted to respect his privacy. But if we look at trends in the camping industry, for example, Terrence Young's 2014 article, The End of Camping, the author writes, after more than a century of increasing popularity, the number of campers is declining. Although camping remains among the top 5 outdoor recreation activities in the US, the rate of participation has dropped by Americans drastically from its peak. Public records show that in 2006, Doug and his wife, Bonnie, not to be confused with his sister, Bonnie, he also marries a Bonnie, they wind up selling the property to Sandcastle of Monmouth, LLC. Records show that from 2006 to 2012, the lots are owned by this LLC, Sandcastle of Monmouth County. They hope to develop the property. Other members of Hugh Connolly Clayton's family attempt to acquire the site, hoping to continue its operation as a campground, to no avail. So there are various plans floated about what the LLC might do with the property. There's talk about a large senior development going there, potentially used by the Toms River School District, but none of these plans ever come to fruition. And in 2012, Sandcastle of Monmouth County, LLC, sells the lots to the Trust for Public Land. Since 1972, the Trust for Public Land has protected more than 3.3 million acres and completed more than 5,400 park and conservation projects. So the Trust for Public Land paid $4.1 million for the 58-acre tract of land, formerly known as Camp Albocondo, to keep it preserved until Toms River was able to find the funding to buy it. According to the Trust for Public Land, conservationists in Toms River Township had long tried to protect Camp Albocondo, a former private campground on the banks of the Toms River, which flows to Barnegat Bay. When a residential subdivision was proposed for the site in 2010, the Trust for Public Land helped purchase the site to protect it from development. In November 2014, we transferred the land to Toms River Township and Ocean County to extend a greenway along the Toms River corridor. The permanent protection of Camp Albocondo's forests and wetlands ensures that the property will continue to provide flood protection for the surrounding communities and safeguard the region's water quality. Then Toms River Mayor Thomas F. Kelleher was quoted at the time as saying, "The property is a wonderful extension of Winding River Park. The acquisition eliminates the possibility that the area could be developed for dense housing construction. There was the chance that if a developer had been found in time, the company could build a 200-unit townhouse project. So this then brings us to the question, what have the town and the county done with the site since 2014? The land themselves are open to the public for passive recreational activities like hiking, fishing, and biking. As for the buildings, they have been ravaged by both the elements and vandals. Doug Clayton says they were in pristine condition when he left, so I set out to explore, what happened. Toms River Township actually owns the portions of the property with the buildings on it. A representative for the town noted that when they acquired the site, the town did not have a specific immediate use for the site and just wanted to keep it out of the hands of developers, right? Which is, of course, admirable. In time, though, the town hopes to move its recreation department to the site and use it as a trailhead for the Joshua Huddy Trail. It would become part of a bike and pedestrian trail along the Toms River, linking the campsite to Riverwood Park to the north and Winding River Park to the south. Recreation equipment and passive recreation activities such as kayak storage and launch and summer camp would be operated at the site if this plan comes to fruition. As for the buildings, according to a township representative, they have, quote, deteriorated beyond reasonable use and will be demolished as they have become a hazard and a drain on enforcement resources. In an interesting aside, it appears that the popularity of camping is actually back on the rise. It was increasing in popularity with millennials even before COVID-19, and now due to COVID-19, there's been an absolute explosion in sales of camping gear and RVs. So I just found that a bit ironic. Overnight camping is not slated to return to Camp Albocondo anytime soon, but stay tuned as the next chapter in this site's history unfolds. So what I'd like to do now is show you some, as our title indicates, then and now photos of the buildings before they are lost. So when you walk in to the main entrance of the property off of 571 there, this is the first structure you will run into. This was kind of the greeter's booth where people coming in would get situated, the office for the campsite. The next building you'll see as you come in on your right is a cabin that was built by Hugh Connolly Clayton, actually in the 80s, the latter 80s. He and his wife, Alta Jean, moved here after the houseboats. So beautiful log cabin construction. I had the pleasure of touring this site with Hugh Clayton's grandson, Jim Sitta, who talked to me about how they built the site themselves, and we actually saw the blueprints for the site. So this is a gorgeous building. This is another photo of it while it's still under construction. And then we can see a photo of the site today. And I will just transition back for a moment so you can see that same angle. This would have been around 1988. And then this is today. This is the front of that cabin. Then and now. So I'll just flip back one more time. That was around 1988. And this is just this summer. Just another view of that same cabin. And the interior of all of the structures over there have just really, really been destroyed, as you can see. As you continue back deeper into the property, this is that 1930s cabin, Calitra, that I told you about earlier. Beautiful snow-covered scene. So that was then. And this is closer to when the property was first vacated. So you can see they've closed in the porch there. Everything's still nice and tidy. And unfortunately, this is the cabin now. Still standing there proudly on the water, but so I'll just flip back for a moment. So you can see the door and the windows there. So we're coming at this photo from the same angle. And there we go. Okay. This is just a different side of the cabin. Let's see. Another shot. And the inside of that 1930s cabin caliche now. This is approaching the 1950s ranch. This is the one that I showed you the spread from the Asbury Park Press. So this is approaching it now. There were 2 swimming pools here, one for public use, one for the family. Those were removed only recently because they've become such a hazard. Okay, so here is a close-up of the 1950s Ranch Albocondo from that APP article. And this is today, coming at it from a similar angle. So I'll just flip back for you one more time. If you focus on the fireplace, it helps you really orient yourself. So there's the fireplace and that window in the front. And then this is the ranch today. On the left-hand side of the screen, picture I showed you earlier, the 1950s ranch, and you can see those 2 garage doors there. And that helps you match up, although the house has been slightly modified since, those 2 garage doors help you match up what you're looking at. And that's the ranch today. Another shot of the ranch today. This is that photo I showed you earlier of Hugh and Jean in front of the fireplace, and then the fireplace today. That's just an interior camera stuck inside, so you could get a feel for, sadly, the destruction that has taken place. This is one of the outbuildings that I showed you earlier, Hugh constructing those bathrooms for the public guests, and one of the bathroom buildings today. This would have been the boardwalk that went to the houseboat that Hugh and his wife retired to at one point. Nothing remains of the houseboats today, but if you follow the boardwalk back, you can see kind of the landing dock, deck area for the houseboats, and also catch a glimpse of a water wheel that's there that Hugh built on the site. And I won't, in the interest of time, show you photos of all of the outbuildings, but they are all in a similar state of disrepair, unfortunately. So in the time that we have left before I open it up for questions and answers, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the man who really made this possible for generations of people to have these wonderful memories of commuting with the outdoors and each other at this site. And that is, of course, Hugh Connolly Clayton. So how fitting that, our headquarters is in Toms River, and Hugh Connolly Clayton was born in Toms River in 1920. He attended Toms River schools, graduating from high school in 1938. The Toms River Regional School District inducted Mr. Clayton into their Hall of Fame in 1991, and they have compiled what is perhaps the best brief biography of his life that is available, formally out there outside of his family, of course. That biography notes that immediately after high school, Connolly worked for a local builder, building houses and chicken coops. The following year, he went to work for the United States Navy at the Electric Launch Company Naval Division in Bayonne, building PT boats. He was soon in charge of setting engines, props, and running the tests for the completed boats. In 1941, he went to work for the Annapolis Yacht Yard in Maryland to build a Lend-Lease PT boat. Working for the U.S. Navy Bureau of Ships, he did the designing and installations and all the mechanical items such as engines and hookup, machine guns and torpedoes. Early in 1943, he was selected to go to Russia with 2 other young men to build the PT boats in Leningrad so they could be put into action on the east side of the German blockade in the Baltic Sea. Having arrived directly after the siege of Leningrad, he found no food, 55-degree below zero weather, and a workforce consisting of women and children. For his unique contribution to the war effort, Hugh Clayton was awarded the highest honor in Russia, the Order of Red Banner of Labor, which was presented to him at a dinner in Leningrad. This is a fascinating postcard that he sends home while he's over there. So post-war, Hugh Clayton returns to Toms River and begins the Clayton Yacht Works with his brother Lloyd. The 1953 book, The Jersey Shore, A Social and Economic History of the Counties of Atlantic, Cape May, Monmouth, and Ocean, called Clayton Yacht Works one of the best known and largest of the Jersey Shore. The brothers later ran Clayton Skiffs, Inc., employing 300 workers at their Fisher Boulevard location. In 1959, according to that Toms River Regional School District biography that I referenced earlier, Clayton sold the business to retire at age 39. True to form, his so-called retirement was alive with activity. He did some consulting work for Hess Oil Company, designing and building large oil systems, developed Edgemere Estates, built the Albocondo campground, and bought real estate in Florida. Busy man. Mr. Clayton, successful in business though he was also a true and active philanthropist, giving generously of both his time and money. He himself was an Eagle Scout, and he was involved with the Boy Scouts for decades. He was a volunteer fireman for 30 years. He was a non-paid special Dover Township policeman for 20 years. He served on the Dover, now Toms River, Township Planning Board for 14 years, 7 of those as chairman, during which time the Dover Parks and Recreation Department was begun. He was a lifetime member of the Kiwanis and St. Andrew's United Methodist Church. And this accounting really just begins to scratch the surface of his service to his community. Hugh Connolly Clayton died in 1995, aged 75. His wife, Alta Jean Clayton, predeceased him in 1993. His legacy of service should really inspire us all. Here's a photo of Hugh with his family at the dedication of the Hugh Clayton Service Center. He donated the land and a significant chunk of money to build that Boy Scouts building that is near the intersection of 571 and Whitesville Road. So again, a true philanthropist who really is one of Ocean County's finest sons. So with that, here's just a snippet of the obituary for Mr. Clayton. I'm checking the chat too. I see people anxiously typing away in the chat. So I imagine we are about to have a great conversation. If anyone is interested in slightly more information, this talk was just published as an article in the most recent issue of Garden State Legacy. If you're not familiar with Garden State Legacy, it is this delightful, free online New Jersey history publication. So I encourage you to look that up, whether you want to read this article or not, look it up because there's some amazing content there about the history of our great state. Just a couple thanks before I do open it up for Q&A. So many people were incredibly helpful doing this research in the middle of a pandemic with archives largely closed. So I did want to thank everybody, Bonnie Clayton Sitta, Jim Sitta, Doug Clayton, Gordon Clayton, and everyone else that is listed here. So with that, like I said, the chat's been busy, so I imagine people have things they would like to ask or comment on. Let me stop sharing my slides for a moment. And if you have a question, you should be able to unmute yourself and ask. Would anybody like to test that out and dive in? Let's see. I'm going through the chat. I have, Jeff has managed to unmute himself. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, I also put something on the chat. I was the friend of a fellow who said his wife's family owned in the early 50s a chicken farm on 571 where the Boy Scout building is located. Do you know of any relationship between the camp and a chicken farm?
Yeah, so since Mrs. Clayton is on the phone, she can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding from the maps and land records that I've examined is that the chicken farm was kind of where the Boy Scout building is now, that Mr. Clayton acquired that property. He purchased that property to expand his Camp Albocondo tract, and then that's part of the land that he winds up donating to the Boy Scouts.
Okay, do you know about when that was, when that would have been, the 50s, early 50s?
You know, I would have to double check that for you, Jeff, but I'll make sure. I'm going to put my email in the chat here. And anybody who has questions that I can't answer off the fly here is welcome to send me an email, and I'll check in the records for you.
Okay, all right, thank
you. Okay. And I can probably send you the map too that has the chicken farm on it, just to give you
yeah, I'd like to see that.
Okay, so Jeff was our first, so now I know people are capable of unmuting themselves. Anyone else have a question or comment? Okay, let's see. I'm looking in the chat. Joe Graziano says, it's worth mentioning Hugh and Jean were super sweet folks. So thank you for adding that. Connie asks, is the current Jersey Shore Boy Scout Council building considered to be a part of the 58 acres? No, they still own that property. That's still owned by the Boy Scouts of America.
Melissa, this is Jim Sitta.
Hi, Jim, who came and toured the site with me? I can't see you.
Yeah, I don't know why you can't see me, but I'm okay.
There you are. Hello.
How you doing? In answer to that gentleman's question about the chicken farm, sometime prior to 1977, 78, the chicken farms were bought by a group of investors by the name of Bennett. One of the principals' name was Bennett. I don't recall the name of their corporation. And they held that, I think it was about 16 acres. There were two houses up in one corner where the Boy Scout building is now. And around I'm going to say 79 or 80, my father-in-law acquired that entire tract. And the two lots were then, there was a re-subdivision of the property, and the Boy Scout property was created out of where the houses were up in that corner. The rest of the land that was the chicken farm, he annexed to the campground. And the back part of that piece is where the newer log cabin is built. But the final transaction when it became part of Camp Albocondo was around the late 70s, early 80s. And then the Boy Scout building followed with part of his donation and plan and the construction of that. It's interesting to note that he also designed the building that the Boy Scouts are in now. So he was a Renaissance man and had many talents. I just wanted to try and answer that gentleman's question. I do not know the owners of the name of the original chicken farm, but it really passed from the chicken farmers 2 or 3 times before it was acquired by my father-in-law and then became part of Camp Albocondo.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sitta. And one thing I'll note for any research enthusiasts amongst us, the Ocean County clerk has digitized and made available online decades and decades of land records. So you can actually go back and search the parcels and who owned them and when. It's really fascinating stuff. You can kind of fall down the rabbit hole and lose a lot of time doing that. If anyone is interested, it's all on the Ocean County Clerk's website. I have someone here saying, what is the future of the property? As I noted, representatives from Toms River Township, Toms River versus the county, they're the ones that own the land with the buildings on it. Nothing is set in stone yet, but they believe all of the buildings are going to have to come down and that it's going to be kind of the Parks and Recreation headquarters for the township, which I think is a wonderful new lease on life for the site. Hopefully we can have generations more children and families making great memories there. Okay, any other questions? I think I hear someone typing. Let's see.
Yes.
What is the relationship between Hugh Clayton and Clayton Sand and Gravel? Well, as some of you might be aware, there are a lot of Claytons out there. I did not extensively research the whole family tree. So to the best of my knowledge, and I do have some Claytons and some Sittas on here, and they can correct me if they'd like, it was not Hugh's endeavor, and therefore my focus was really on Hugh. So, so yeah, not part of this particular story. Okay. Well, we're ending a smidge earlier than normal. It was my first time giving this particular talk, so I wasn't sure exactly how long it would go, but I think our technology worked pretty well for our first online lecture. I hope you learned something new about our great county and one of its finest sons. So if there are no further questions, we'll end it there, and hopefully we will see you all if we try this again. Okay? All right, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a lovely day. Stay well.
Bye, guys.